Hello, my name is Joanne from 123stitch.com. I just finished making this cute little design. It's from Anabella Needleart and it's called Spring Quaker. I finished it as a pillow and I like it, but I feel like it's missing something. It needs something to make it a little bit more special. So I found some rickrack that I like a lot. It matches perfectly. However, it is too late to sew it in the seams. So what I'm going to be doing is hand sewing it to the outer edge of the design. And I'm going to be adding some beads along the edges as well to make it a little extra special. You don't have to do the beading. If you don't like beads, this method will work just as well. Just leave the beads off. Now, before we get started, go down below. Are you subscribed to our channel? If you're not, click on that subscribe button right now so you don't miss out on any of our upcoming videos. So what do we need? We need our design. We need our rickrack, and if it's not flat, go ahead and iron that. We want it to be perfectly flat when we use it. We're going to need some pins to pin it in place, some scissors, beads if you're going to use them. I have some Mill Hill beads in white. I think it's 00479, just regular seed beads. You're going to need a thread that matches your rickrack exactly. If you're using the beading, the thread's not going to show as much. But if you're not using beads, you really want it to match exactly. So I could not find a sewing thread that matched my rickrack, but I did find this DMC color. So I'm going to use a strand of this to sew it on. We will need a needle. For this, you're going to want a chenille or sewing needle. You need that sharp point to get through the pillow. And you need it thin enough to fit through the beading if you're using beads. It doesn't need to be a beading needle necessarily, just run it through your beads and see if it fits. Last thing is absolutely optional and totally unconventional, but I love it. This is a taco stand. It holds tacos. And what do I use it for here? I use it to hold my pillow. So I can sew my rickrack on hands-free. I don't have to hang onto the pillow at the same time I'm trying to sew. So, don't need it, but I like it. Those are the things you need to make the pillow and put the rickrack on it. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, I like to start at the bottom of my design. So I'm going to put this in my little stand here, or you can just hold it with the bottom at the top. I'm going to take my rickrack and I'm going to first pin it in place around just so I have an idea of how much I need. And when I do that, I like to leave a little tail at the beginning there so that I have a little leeway when I get all the way around. I want to make it match up perfectly. So I'm just going to put a few pins in here. We want to be right in that center seam. This is just to kind of make sure I have enough and to hold it in place for me a little bit as I go. And when you get to the corner, it's easy. You just sort of go around the corner. I'm going to pin this all the way around. I think the color is going to be perfect and it's going to add that little bit of extra I wanted for this design. It's a nice way to use rickrack, especially if you're kind of afraid to sew it in. I was always afraid to sew it in. But I am going to do a video very soon where I show you some tips and tricks to make sewing the rickrack in your seams just a little bit easier. Let's do our last side here. And we'll just be taking the pins out as we go. And again, this is just kind of temporarily hold it in place, make it a little bit easier to sew. And my little taco stand is doing its job. So I have both hands free. Okay. Now when you get to the end, you kind of want them to overlap. If they don't overlap exactly, then it works, but it's not perfect. You're going to see the end. So I kind of like to see if I can get it to line up a little bit better, whether you make it looser or tighter. Just gonna, that's close. So I'm just gonna cut this extra large, and we're not gonna worry about that right now. We're gonna match it up later on. Now I'm just going to take my needle that I've threaded, and I have a knot at the end, and we're going to, I think I'm going to start at this tip up here. What we'll be doing is basically sewing into the points. So I'm going to take this one over here. I'm going to go underneath my pillow, right in the seam. This is where you need that sharp needle. And I'm going to have it come up right in the point. Go. And I have that nice little knot on there, and I'm in the seam, but I started on the cross stitch fabric. So you don't have to do it this way, but I like to hide the knot. And you can do that by just kind of tugging a little bit until the knot goes into the cross stitch fabric. And now it is hidden in the seam. So I can actually trim this little piece that's sticking up here, and the knot will stay in the seam. All right, now that we've got our first thread up in that first point, we're going to use our beads. I'm just going to grab a bead. And I'm going to put my needle right back down, right next to where I came up. And then I'm going to bring it back up again in the point, the next point. See that? So there's my first bead. I'm going to zoom that in a little bit for the next one so you can see what I'm doing. Go. Our thread is right there in that point, and see how it matches? You can't even tell it's there. So if you weren't doing a bead, you would just bring your needle down right next to it. But I'm putting a bead on. Go. I'm going to bring my needle down right next to the stitch it was already in. I'm going through the pillow and back up into the next point. That. And now I've got my second bead. Take another bead. Bring your needle down right next to it. Remember, you want to make sure you're still covering that seam, pillow seam, and then come right back up into the next point. That's all there is to it. We're going to do it all the way around. The corner is no trickier. You just follow the points. Let's do a couple more here. I'm going to grab a needle. Grab a bead. Go down into that point and back up through the pillow and back up in the next point. I think that pin is in my way. There we go. Let's get that pin out of there. There we go. Make sense? You just continue on this way until you're all the way around. So yes, it is a little time consuming, but not hard. Totally worth it. Gets a little faster when you start going along. Whoops. There we go. So I'm going to continue all the way around the pillow until I get to the end, and I'm going to show you how I match up the ends. Okay, I've gone all the way around my pillow and I'm back to the beginning. So all I want to do is either stretch the bottom a little or stretch the top so that the points line up. Doesn't have to be exact, but if you want it to match up, you just need to sometimes just kind of stretch it just a tiny bit. I'm going to put a pin right there, and then I'm going to finish sewing my beads on. Now, if you ran out of thread while you were going around, like I did, all you do is you knot it off underneath and then just start the way we did in the beginning. Put our knot underneath the rickrack and keep going. I'm going to get the last few beads on here and we're almost done. And this did not take long at all. And we get to the part where it's overlapped so that they match up. I'm just going to go through. And that's the first bead. So my last bead I want to be right here, where my pin is. Okay, I'm going through double layer now. Go. I'm going to move that pin out of the way. Yep, that's going to be my last one. It doesn't have to match up perfectly, but you want it to line up somewhat so that it's not so noticeable. Oops, oops. First time I did that. There we go. Get our last one on here. And because it is my last one, I'm going to be knotting underneath. I'm just going to run that underneath for now. I'm going to trim, that's a pin. I'm going to trim my rickrack right there. And you may want to tack your rickrack down just a little bit since we've got that little raw edge there. And because your thread matches, you can take a few stitches in there without it being too big of a deal. I'm just going to put a couple of stitches in there and then I'm going to knot it off and we will be done. I like to run my last thread through the pillow, pull that tight, and then clip. There we go. Not perfect, but not bad. Okay. Okay, there's our finished pillow. I really love the hand-sewn rickrack with the beading. I think it was the perfect touch for this pillow. And you know, this is one of those finishes that look super impressive to people, but don't really take that long to do. So I hope you enjoyed today's tutorial. If you have any questions or comments, please let me know. Make sure you subscribe to our channel, and any products I mentioned today will also be listed as a link down below. I will see you again soon.